The trade deadline is just 8 days away, so we figured it was a good time to do a mailbag and answer all of your questions about trades and otherwise for the Colorado Avalanche. Let's start the show. Memed again. Welcome into the Toyota Winners Lounge. Even though it's not a Winners Lounge, we got an off-day show for the mailbag today. We appreciate all y'all coming out. Of course, we're powered by Front Range Toyota dealerships and brought to you by Bet365. We got Big E, we got AJ, we got Rudo coming to you, answering listener and viewer questions. A bunch of stuff to get into. Obviously, a lot of it's going to be trade deadline related. Name of the show, though, something that I've seen floated around a lot. We had some people ask about it, including Amber on Twitter for our first question. I've seen a shocking amount of takes saying the Avs season is dead and they should be sellers at the deadline. I might just be a homer, but can't see how that's the take when they haven't iced a full healthy roster yet. Thoughts? Still a contender or mid at best? Okay. I'll answer.
Great thoughts.
So let's go with like a strategic seller, okay? Not really a seller because I want them to continue to buy the things that they need, but like if they could find a home for Josh Manson, or if they could find a home for Miles Wood and the contract and the money, I would be very comfortable with that. But
it's
in terms of like a traditional seller, like what Boston has become, hell nah.
Are they a seller? No. Do they have pieces that they want to move out? Yes. The thing is, you're moving out those pieces to make room for more pieces to buy, right? You're not selling off pieces. You're reorganizing maybe at best, if not just outright buying.
And I think Kel McCarr said it the other day. We got to give CMAC and company, the front office, a reason to go out there this trade deadline and help us out because they are in the window with McCarr, MacKinnon, and company. We keep forgetting the secondary guys of Natushkin, Lehkonen, Devontae's. I mean, Sammy Girard. Those are solid. It's a solid group. It's a solid core. They're going for it in my book. And, at the end of the day, I think you can't waste an opportunity to try to figure out what's your best group going in. And you still got another, 8 days or to figure it out and put a nail in the coffin there of what this roster is going to be post-deadline.
Yeah, to me, these questions are kind of simple. Do you believe the Avs can win as currently constructed? And if the answer is no, which I think it should be no, how much do you believe it's going to take to get to them to be a contender? You can put whatever price you want on that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't think it's like, I've seen some people over the last 24 to 48 hours talking about, well, they need a completely new third line. They need 4 defensemen. They need 3 defensemen. And it's just like, okay, well, if that's what they need, they're done. This is over.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think they need 1 defenseman. Maybe 2 if you're like getting the most luxurious deadline of all time. On the forward side, I think there's more work to be done. But again, are they a million pieces away? No. Do they need a center? Probably. Do they need another forward on top of that? Maybe you can make an argument depending on health and how other players perform and things like that. But I don't know that they need more than 2 pieces at this deadline, and they certainly don't need more than 3, at least for me.
No, I think 1 and 1 for me, and I do believe that. Again, you had 1 last night in Natushkin. Again, you're going to say, "Oh, that doesn't count." No, it does count. Like for once, you're seeing your top 6 give and take. You know what I mean, for what they are, what they will be. What's that?
Game 5.
That's my point. You know, I mean that you said that yesterday, 4.5 games. Now it's just like, and I totally agree, and that's why it's like it makes a big difference. We saw Val yesterday. He's a game changer. He's a lineup changer. He just throws things differently. He's different than the other guys. Special teams, all the above. So I think it's one player up front, one player on the back end that makes you change, you know, the dynamics a little bit of the way you're constructed right now. You don't retool your goaltending on the spot, and you don't, you know what I mean, like deal with the Rantanen situation in the sense that you got Natchez in return, and obviously, and Drury. Can't forget about Jack Drury because that's what you needed, depth, and all of a sudden to not like think that you're going to go for it, you know. So I do believe they're going to go for it, and I do believe that if they do 1-1, they're in good shape to go for it. Yep.
Yeah, I just. Sorry, go ahead. Do your thing.
No. You finish up. I was going to move on.
Yeah, I don't think that it's really like it's kind of like two simultaneous conversations. If you think they need another second line center, it's going to be hard to do at this deadline, and that might be you keep Middlestat for the summer when you have a bigger market. Right now, there are maybe 2 to 4 teams that you could have those conversations with. Over the summer, it's going to be 10 to 15. So doing it right now just may be bad business for you, where you just hang on and hope that Casey figures it out down the stretch and has a good postseason. But you can go and get a third line center. Those guys are available for an asset that you are comfortable giving up. And you know, maybe a middle 6 wing. A top 4 defenseman is going to be a harder task. Again, that's probably more of a summer thing, but you can get a defenseman at the bottom of your lineup that can help you out a little bit. Those are all gettable for assets that are reasonable, and several of them that we've talked about are guys that would be available beyond just this season. If you're just doing the Lars Eller thing this year, that does suck and that does not feel good. But if you're able to keep that guy beyond this season, I think that changes that math quite a bit.
For sure.
Well said.
We'll jump off from that. A question from Sam Adams, who says, if Middlestat starts to turn it around this week, does that make management more comfortable going into the deadline, or does it make their job harder?
Well, I'll go first, like a little bit of both. Because if he's doing good, it's like, are we doing the right thing? And again, I'm assuming that's if they were making a move. And again, we're assuming here, just to answer the question. He's starting to do good. Then are we making a mistake for getting rid of him? You know what I mean? Or on the flip side of things, you're showcasing a guy sometimes. You want him to do good because you're like, I want to get rid of him. I want him to do well. So a little bit of both. I think their mind is set by now on what they're trying to do, what they feel that needs to be done. And that's not a knock on Casey by any means. Casey played, I thought, really well. It is, but I'm saying if you go by last night, played a really good game last night, right? In my mind, he made some special plays like that backhand sauce across there that, Devontae's, because he easily, scored a goal there. That was a sick play. Holy. You know what I mean? Like, not everyone makes those plays, and obviously he gets on the board. But I think it's more a little bit of both. And I think once Rudo and AJ have said it the best about Casey Middlestat. Everyone knows I like Casey, and I'm not saying they don't. I'm saying that if you think you can just get rid of someone and you're getting someone better, like who is it out there that's better? You know what I mean? You don't just, you know what I mean? That's a fair way to put it. I think the two of you put it that way the last month or so. Like, if you're going to really find something that's better, like what is, then let me know. Like, what's better? You know what I mean? And that's why the Ryan O'Reilly thing comes into play, and you try to figure it out. It's just a different fit that, who knows?
If you want to know some of the options we might think are better, go check out AJ's piece. We got a 20-man trade board that's got some guys that we might think are better fits. So
that's it. And sometimes that's why I said it's not a knock on Casey, meaning you're not a fit somewhere. Some people might think he's not a fit. Some people, and again, Bednar and company might think he's not a fit. I mean, they'll never tell us. But at the end of the day, you'll know by what's going to happen here either this week or next summer or nothing. And that gives you your answer.
Yeah. And you do also have to remember, like, I understand people feel the way that they do about Casey Middlestat, and like a lot of it, so much of it honestly is very justified. He has not been nearly good enough this season, but like we're talking about Ryan O'Reilly has 34 points this year as Nashville's #1 center. Casey Middlestat, I think, has 33 points now after the goal last night.
Yep.
Yeah, he's up to 33 points as the 2C, with line mates that have revolved constantly all year long. And O'Reilly has played with Philip Forsberg and Gus Nyquist basically since the season started. Like, so that's like when we talk about how bad is it with Middlestat, there have been stretches where it's been that bad.
Yep.
But the overall body of work,
Not
I
that
think
bad.
it's got
Yeah.
exaggerated a little bit, and it is
Agreed.
important to remember he is 26 years old. He's signed for I think 5.75 for the next 2 seasons, a very reasonable number for a second line center. Like, when we talk about the body of work and the overall situation here, it's not so bad with Middlestat.
I mean, let me ask you guys, because I believe the best situation coming out of this deadline is the Avs go get the best center available and they hold on to Middlestat. Both. Agreed?
Agreed.
I agree. I just don't know financially if it.
Right.
That's
Obviously, assets and
That's
cap make that difficult. I'm not saying it's
I
going to
agree
happen.
with you. That's
but-
no, I agree with you. That would be like that's a home run, right? Absolutely. In my book, but in your book.
All right. I just wanted to check on that. We can keep rolling. By far, the person asked about most on this mailbag when it comes to trades is Seth Jones. Player, sure. Obviously, still quite good in the NHL. Playing for that terrible Chicago team. He's obviously made overtures to not enjoying his time there at the moment. But the cap hit is obviously crazy. For Colorado to even be involved, it would have to be a retention situation. And we've talked about this a little bit before. I know, AJ, you've said this probably makes more sense as an offseason move than a trade deadline move. But realistically, does Seth Jones even make sense in Colorado?
He does, and I've been surprised at the amount of people that are just so anti Seth Jones. I think that the contract is obviously a problem. Chicago would have to retain a minimum of $2 million on that deal for that to start being a conversation for me. I would really push hard for it to be 3 or 4. I don't think 4 will happen. That's how I get to 3. But if they get to retaining 3, then you are talking about a $6 million second pairing defenseman. That's expensive, but what he does well, he does at a really high level. He moves his feet well. He handles a puck really well. You go and look at all of his microstat data. The guy's really good with a puck. Is that really what the Avalanche need? It's fair to ask that question and come to the conclusion of not really.
They might have enough of that.
It's not like really what they need, but he is big and he is a guy that we have seen him turn up the wick when things have gotten competitive. Things aren't competitive in Chicago right now. He's very clearly going through the motions. It's tough to see, but he's also on the wrong side of 30, and none of us get younger. It's not how this works. So I think there are fair red flags there. There are pockmarks in his game that can raise doubt. But just as a player who would fit in Colorado and be able to handle the minutes that they would ask him to play,
sure,
a much better fit than some of the guys that we have talked about. I still think Brandon Carlo's kind of like my ideal here in this spot.
Yeah.
But like a Seth Jones is a guy that has a two-way ability that a Brandon Carlo simply doesn't. And that's, I mean, the money would be tough, especially this season. Like if they were to do this in season, the money would be hard right now. Yep. But I think I just think you get back to what do you think was more important for winning the Stanley Cup? Was it Nazem Kadri or was it the defense being 6 deep, really 5 deep after the Girard injury? Because that's the thing you're trying to recreate, right?
Yep.
Like that's the area that you're trying to rebuild there, and so that's where with Seth Jones, he would take up so much of that space that you won't have a lot left to do.
Yeah.
So you're probably not able to move out. You're not replacing Casey Middlestat at that point.
For sure. I do want to continue this conversation, but we got to pay some bills first. As we are, of course, one of our new sponsors here, at least on the Avalanche show, is Lucy Nicotine. You can go get with Lucy's Breakers, their nicotine pouches with an extra surprise. Each pouch has a capsule that can be broken to release an extra flavor and hydration for you. You can even set yourself up with an subscription to have Lucy delivered straight to your door if that's your thing. Personally, I love them out on the golf course. Great little thing. I know a lot of hockey players are into the nicotine pouches too. So
Yep.
You will need to get yours. You can get them through Lucy. Tons of different flavors. You can also get different strengths depending on what you're looking for. And you can get 20% off when you use code DNVR over at lucy.co. That's lucy.co/DNVR with that DNVR promo code. They also have a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. So go check it out. Level up your nicotine routine with Lucy. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults even of legal age, and every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine, and nicotine is an addictive chemical. And we're also brought to you by the folks over at Shady Rays, another great product if you're out on the golf course, because I don't like going blind looking at the sun, it turns out. Go check out your Shady Rays. There you go. He's got a pair right there. You can get 35% off at shadyrays.com when you use code DNVR on any pair of their polarized sunglasses. They have hundreds of different styles and polarizations to choose from. They even have corrective sunglasses or goggles for skiing and snowboarding. All sorts of great products when it comes to Shady Rays. Over 300,000 people have rated them 5 stars. So go check it out today. Go get yourself some Shady Rays. The coolest part is their return policy. If you break them, you lose them, or you just don't like them the first 30 days, Shady Rays will replace your sunglasses entirely for free. So let them know DNVR sent you over there. Use that code and get 35% off your new pair of sunglasses today. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. I did want to continue the conversation on Seth Jones very briefly. As with every conversation, if there is a move that makes you better, you should do it, right? Like, that's how business works.
Really easy to say.
Right, of course. Very hard to actually do in practice. With Seth Jones, one interesting angle I will take is we saw the Rantanen deal. Chicago seemingly just giving away salary retention there for an awfully cheap price. Maybe there's a world where Chicago's willing to retain a bit cheaper. Maybe the Avs can figure out a 3-team deal where you get a little bit of extra retention from somebody else.
Maybe you're on to something, because if you look at his comments yesterday, I was talking to AJ yesterday about that. He clearly looks like a guy that's trying to get shipped out of town. Right?
Yep.
I mean, those were pretty harsh comments.
Yep.
Whether you're right or wrong, you're still getting paid a lot of money by your ownership group. You know what I mean? That's paying you, right? By the team that's paying you. So you got to be a little bit more, God, I hate the word, like, respectful. And I'm not saying they're a nice family. They're a great family, obviously, having some roots here in Denver. But you can tell that after a while, your blood boils, and maybe that's part of it. Like, how do we get shipped out? And to the point of, let's make sure they really don't want to see me right now, so we can facilitate something. And then it sounds stupid what I'm saying, but it's true. And you gotta, I don't know, you gotta figure it out. And at what point can somebody said it like earlier? You really got to retain, but to what point?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, of course, the retention, I say. And that's what happens when it's great to have those big contracts. And look, remember Roberto Luongo? Remember, he's like, oh, it's my contract just gets in my way. Remember, because he had that crazy contract. And it's true. Your contract gets in your way sometimes, of finding a better fit for you. Like, he seems to be wanting to join a winner because he's never really won. And then he doesn't want to be part of a rebuild. But your contract goes with you.
And, a great point, because the difference there between Mikko and Seth Jones is Mikko's an expiring contract. You're
Big
making
difference.
a pretty big commitment to retain on Seth Jones for multiple years of this deal.
And that's what's in the way.
They're going to be eating money. Like,
Yes.
Chicago is going to be, we just saw San Jose do it with Tomas Hertl, which was shocking to all of us for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But would they really do that with Seth Jones? 5 years of this, like, it doesn't seem like this relationship's going to get any better. So I think they're going to end up having to do something at some point with it. But the point that everybody looks at the salary cap exploding and goes, okay, well 9.5 is too much for Seth Jones, but is 7 too much over the next 5 years?
Sure.
And I just don't. I don't think that it is. But Chicago having to just pay $2.5 million for half of a decade as Bedard and this generation of picks that they've made grows up.
Yep.
And grows into bigger contracts, they might need that $2.5 million at some point. It's a big commitment for them to just pay a guy to go away.
For sure. For, like you said, an organization that 5 years from now is expecting to be competitive in some sense, at very least. We'll keep rolling here. A question from Kyle. I want to throw this one to you, E, since you've been in the rooms, you've done it. How important is previous trade history with teams when trying to get deals done at the deadline? The Avs seem to have a good history with Nashville and Montreal. Does this help them make better deals?
100% right. It's life, right? It's your circle of trust, circle of friends. Being comfortable with one GM, and sometimes you just don't mesh well with another one, and it's just not compatible. You know what I mean? And not that you're trying to have a marriage, you're trying to make a transaction. So it's like anything else. It's very important that you understand each other. You understand that, what is the BS part of it, what's the non-BS part of it, and you know what I mean? Because you're trying to fleece each other. I mean,
Of course.
You can be friends, but you're trying to fleece each other. So you got to make sure that you're comfortable, and it does make a difference. And you're right. It sounds like C-Mac in Montreal, for example, that they have some sort of, being comfortable. And look no further than Montreal, like Kent Hughes being an agent all those years, and maybe C-Mac's had to deal with them over, a lot of clients over the years of the Kent Hughes, which, his company representing players, made C-Mac and him become trustworthy of each other, and and you're trying to make something happen. So yes, it's true, and sometimes it is true on the other hand too, that you're like, oh God, I don't want to deal with them. I want the player, but I don't want to deal with them. You know what I mean? And that makes a big difference, and a lot of times those deals die or whatever because of all the, the brouhaha that comes with it. So yeah, it does make sense. And, sometimes it's just pure luck or pure hazard. But a lot of times relationships have a lot to do with the deals you're making.
Yep.
I would point out that this is one reason why you have not seen Seattle do a whole lot of these types of things the last few years. Ron Francis is notoriously difficult to deal with, to get a deal across that finish line. The guy will grind you to death. And, teams just will reach a point where they're like, okay, we're not getting this done. This guy isn't so special. This isn't the only one of these guys that we're going to go talk to somebody else because this isn't going to do it. And especially because Francis has not liked to do a lot of futures-based deals. He's not a guy that likes to do players for picks. So with that in mind, those relationships will matter for things like that.
Yep. It's all relationships all the way down. A lot of people asking about not just who the Avs can bring in, but who they can ship out, including JT saying, what is the outlook of the Avs being able to shed some dead weight / bad contracts as well, or is shedding those more likely to happen during the summer? Which teams might take Manson, Colton, or Wood off of our hands? I'll take the easiest one here. As much as everyone has thrown around Ross Colton's name as a piece they'd like to move out, Colton technically has a no-trade clause until July 1st when it becomes modified, and it's like a 12-team list after that. So in season, it's actually going to be quite difficult for the Avs to move Ross Colton this year. Next year, different conversation. But
that's assuming he says no.
Yeah, right. If Ross Colton wants out, then sure, it's easy. Maybe he does. I don't know him personally, but the reason players get no trade clauses is usually because they don't want to leave.
Yeah, with Colton, I mean, I can't help but wonder. We're talking about the best thing for them to do is to add a center to Casey Middlestat.
Yeah,
doesn't it make plenty of sense for Colorado to call up? Speaking of relationships, to call up Nashville and say, hey, Ross Colton, to go with Tommy Novak, you guys can rebuild your center depth with those two guys. He's only $4 million, signed for 2 more years, and have that be the start of a Ryan O'Reilly deal and then you have O'Reilly and Middlestat and Drury down the middle behind MacKinnon. Like, isn't that where you would like for that to start? Like that?
Yes.
And for Colton, like, wouldn't that be easy for him to say, yeah, I'm going to get to play a ton. I'm going to get to play with some good players. I'm going to get opportunity. It's not going to be Stanley Cup opportunity this year, but that organization seems prime for a quick rebound to me. I don't think they have a long, painful rebuild process ahead of them.
Yeah, look, if Colton is willing to move, I think he's one of the pieces that makes the most sense for the Avs to be putting out there. But if he's not willing to move, then he won't move. Like,
yeah. If they're like, hey, we want you to go to Winnipeg, he's going to be like, cool.
Nah.
I want lots of things in life that I don't get.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're bang on. I mean, it's exactly how it is. It's a puzzle. That's why you don't get a lot of sleep during the season. You certainly don't get a lot of sleep right now during trade deadline. If you're in management, coaches, it's like, hey, go coach the team. We got the rest. And, I think that's why sometimes you keep your coaches away a little bit on those types of what's going on, right? Because coaches are, I'll take him. Next thing you know, they're napkin and their lineup, and But again, it's fictional because it's not happening. You don't know. But yeah, then it comes down to no trades, and like you're talking about Colton, and you have a no trade, no move. I mean, it's hard. It's more complicated. It's not Sega, and I say it all the time, or sorry, Xbox. It's a little bit more complicated than a trade on Xbox. Which is, it is what it is, or your pool for your right? Like your private pools or whatever that you're doing. I'll give you that guy for that guy. Like sure. It's a little more complicated, and it's a little more tough, and it's certainly not a lot of sleep for C-Mac right now.
And the reason everyone's interested in Colton is because he does hold some value. When you look at some of those other options, Miles Wood's value is probably at an all-time low, and he's attached to a contract that's going to be tough for teams to swallow because of the length of it. And then Josh Manson has continued to be a perennially injured player. So I'm not saying you can't move those guys at the deadline, but you're having different conversations than a real hockey trade like with Ross Colton.
Yeah, and I think with Manson, it's like, hey, if they can make the money work on some things that they want to do at the deadline this year, moving out Manson this summer I don't think would be a very difficult thing to do, either via trade or considering a buyout option with only 1 year left on his deal. I think the hard part in a Manson trade is getting Colorado's appetite to do it. They love that guy. I don't know that even with the tough year that he's had this season, I think they are saying we would like to add somebody, and then Manson can go and play on our third pairing. Yeah, he'll be too expensive for a third pairing guy, but we'll deal with that come summertime. And that's where, you get a Seth Jones. You move enough money out that you can add Seth Jones, have him be on your second pairing and Josh Manson on your third pairing. Like that puts you in a solid position going into a playoff series. It changes your dynamic on your defense a lot. Versus, all right, we added Seth Jones, but we got rid of Josh Manson now. Okay, well now we have to replace Josh Manson too. Like, there's things that every guy that you subtract is a guy that you have to bring in to replace him. For a Miles Wood, that seems this year certainly would not be very difficult to do, but you're trying to get somebody to take 4 more years of that contract.
Yeah,
that's the challenge with Wood is the $2.5 million. I think is not going to be a big deal for teams.
It's the term,
but
that's the problem.
Yeah, it's the 4 extra years where you're like, dude, for a guy that already is struggling as much as he has this season.
Yeah,
I don't know. Of course, that guy also absolutely screams Boston Bruin to me. So,
sure.
Next week when he's a Boston Bruin and Brandon Carlo becomes an Av, I'm going to feel great.
W.
And that's why some teams will say, like, hey, I'll swallow that contract. You know what I mean? But you're going to attach a second rounder to that, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
as we all
sure.
know. That's how you see, how come? You know what I mean? That's why. It comes down to there's a price to pay to take your problems, so to speak.
They have 3 2026 7th round picks.
Oh, baby. The juice.
All right.
real quick here, one word, yes or no answer. Is there anything out there you would realistically trade Cal Ritchie for?
Yeah, for sure.
Me too. I mean,
Yes. Okay, good. We are going to pay a few more bills now, though, so we appreciate y'all. We are brought to you by the folks over at Game Time. Go get your tickets with Game Time today. You can get tickets to pretty much everything under the sun. And when you use their Game Time Picks feature, you'll get the best tickets for the best price based on your search conditions. They'll filter out all of the junk. They'll get you what you want when it comes to your seating, whether it's pretty much any sporting event there is, or you can even go to things like theaters, concerts, and more through Game Time. And when you sign up with the app with code DNVR, you'll get $20 off your first purchase, whatever tickets you're looking for. And you know what? They're even cooler than that. Game Time guarantees you the best price on tickets. If you find tickets cheaper somewhere else, they'll reimburse your account 110% of the ticket price. So make sure you're getting with Game Time. Join over 15 million people that get their tickets through Game Time. It's a ridiculous number of people. Get those deals, whether it's the last-minute tickets or if you're just trying to find the tickets to your next event. Game Time has you covered. What time is it? It's game time, baby. And once you've got your tickets, once you're in the arena, or maybe you're still at home on the couch, either way, make sure you're choosing chill and drinking an ice-cold Coors Light. The mountains on the bottle or the can turn blue to let you know it's ice-cold and ready to drink. The beer that literally chooses chill. Go get with Coors Light today. Again, you can get them pretty much anywhere you go, but the coolest part is if you go to CoorsLight.com/DNVR, Instacart can deliver that beer right to your front door. So you don't even have to get up off your couch to order a Coors Light for whatever the occasion, whether there's a big game going on or maybe you're just having a barbecue or you're throwing a party, wherever it is, Coors Light is the drink to choose. Highly recommend. Probably saw me drinking them on the watch along the other day. I'll probably have a few at the takeover tomorrow. Either way, Coors Light will be there for you. Brewed right here in Golden, Colorado. So for us here at DNVR, it's local. Again, go get with Coors Light today, CoorsLight.com/DNVR to get that beer delivered right to your front door and choose chill. Of course, Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Please drink responsibly. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast as we keep it rolling here. I regret putting this meme out into the world. Vince asks, is there any chance the Avs can make it work and bring back Mikko this summer?
No.
Is there a 0.01% chance? Never say never? Sure. Is it actually going to happen? No.
I mean, I think a lot of things would have to happen. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
one, it sounds like Mikko has already turned down some pretty hefty contracts, and the Avs aren't going to change the amount they're going to be able to pay him.
And that's my point. That's, you know, I mean, that's okay. For all the people that think that, oh my God, there was no conversations, like everyone knows, like internally, I'm talking about Mikko and the Avs, you know, what he was offered. And that's it. I'm not taking it. Then, okay, then there's a chance you might, you know, we might have to move you now. And then you move them, and then everybody acts surprised. The number's not changing. The Avalanche's number is not changing. You got to remember, they moved on from them. That means they're not changing that number.
Yeah.
Now, is he going to come back and say, yeah, I should have taken that number? I mean, again, there's always a maybe, right? Like you're saying, like there's always
never
a chance.
Say never,
you know
but
I mean?
realistically, no. Yeah.
Realistically, like probably not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think that if it's Carolina or whoever, that if they flip him and he signs with Team X and, you know, he's got a number in mind and he will get that number. We all know that. You know what I mean? And whatever that is it start with a 14 and, you know, probably. I don't know. That's kind of what it sounds like. And then he'll figure out, like, you know, but yeah, to say that he's going to go back and say, no, I don't think so, but there's always a chance.
Yeah. I don't think it's particularly realistic on that front. There's a handful of people that have asked about this, and there's a lot of like weird misunderstandings of the situation when it comes to Gabe Landeskog. So just to like clear things up, Landeskog has been on LTIR for 2 years. The Avs have spent the money of his contract, or at least some of the money. He's not really holding the team hostage in any way, shape, or form. You could have maybe argued that the first year, because there was a situation where they thought he was going to come back, so maybe they didn't spend quite as much at the deadline. But it's been very apparent for the last 2 years that he wasn't going to come back. And if he does come back this year, which is looking more and more unlikely, it's going to be in the playoffs, so the salary cap doesn't matter. So the idea that Landeskog is somehow hindering this team with his contract is just completely untrue, inaccurate. The Avs can and have spent that money and will probably spend more money when it comes to their cap hit at the deadline.
It was more like if he's coming back, like let's say like January, like a couple months ago,
right?
They would have had to have the money to let him come back on the roster. Yep. But obviously he's not even practicing with the team. Yep. So I mean, it's not like again, you're still ways away, and I mean, we talked about it, the handcuffs this summer because of where is this going, and then Natushkin, and all the unknown, of course, because it's been an unknown, but now it's becoming a little bit more known. You know what I mean? Like he has not practiced, so it's not. So he's not playing tomorrow. How's that? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like so, and then the trade deadline after that, there's no more salary cap. You know what I mean? Like I'm saying, like playoffs. You know what I mean? So it's like it doesn't matter. It doesn't. You don't have to make room for him. You can just play.
Yep.
And that's what it sounds like. If he does.
Yeah. If he's back, great. If he's not, it is what it is. And I will say the conversation people are having, if he can't play these playoffs, you're pretty close to being at the end of it, right? Certainly, if he does not give you I'm a 100% ready to go on October 10th or whatever the opening of next season is, it has to be over.
It'll have been 3 years.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's at that point, the Avs can't go into this offseason with Landeskog in limbo.
That's a different situation. Yeah. Yes.
All right. Couple of other questions here. We talked about this a little bit the other day, but Juuso Parssinen, what do you do with him if you're Colorado? He's a healthy scratch the other night, like you predicted.
Parssinen.
It feels like a weird fit. They went out and got him for a third-round pick. I saw the vision. You see this guy as, hey, maybe he can be a middle six scorer for us. He can help us produce a little bit in that department, but it didn't really produce at the rate you were hoping for. And now, at least in the immediate, your forward core is as healthy as it's going to get, and it feels like he doesn't really have a spot in the lineup.
No, and again, I'll do it right here. I'm superstitious, you know that. You don't have one injury, right? You know what I mean? Up front. Forget about Gabe. That's not part of this. You don't have one injury. So right now, if you don't have him, then who's coming up? It's all the guys that have been in the minors that you haven't really liked. You know what I mean? When you say you, not you, but as a whole, there's a reason they went through 700 players this year, the Avalanche, because they were never really, satisfied. Ivan maybe gave you the biggest look, until it wasn't, and he got hurt. Wagner, we all know what he is, gave you some sort of a look. He was brought in to be the captain with the Eagles and bring some leadership. He wasn't brought in to play here. I'm talking about Colorado. Avalanche, NHL. Parssinen gives you a little bit of depth. It gives you a little bit of in case something happens. Now, am I disappointed in that one? Yeah. I still feel, and again, it's the old take here, and people are going to give me crap for it. There's just still a little bit in his game, not enough sandpaper, you know what I mean? Because everybody's good, everybody's talented, but you're not that good, you know what I mean, to be Kale or Nate. So you have to combine that with something else to bring a little bit of grit. And it's not the old school mentality comment. It's true. You got to bring it. And again, sometimes it's not in you. Is it in him? I don't know. It doesn't look to me like it's in him. And when it's not in you, over the years, I've always found that I don't think you'll get that out of him. I think it's just who you are.
At a certain point, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of it. A couple other conversations here. Thoughts on Will Zellers? Obviously, he's having a great year in the USHL. Super talented kid. Still a ways away. The USHL is a long way from the NHL. He's on the smaller side. The next year in college is going to be really important for him because he's going to have to learn to play against bigger, stronger guys because he's going to have size limitations in his career. Even if he has all the talent in the world, So there's a lot of talent there, but a ways to go yet.
Yeah, well said.
Wayne says, I've noticed Nate is winning a ton more faceoffs. Is it just me? Certainly at the Four Nations, he won a bunch. I do think he is winning more. He's still struggling to get to 50% mark, so let's not go crazy with it. But he's not just an auto loss in the faceoff circle anymore. You'll take that.
Such a mindset. You know, I mean, he's got his mind to, like, you know, skating and shooting and powering and getting points and carrying the team, you know. And sometimes faceoffs, I do believe it's an art. You got to be a great cheater. You got to put in some time. You got to watch some stuff, watch some videos too, and just see tendencies of guys, tendencies of the linesmen, and you know what I mean. Like, again, it's all about the best cheater. It is. I think he thinks that, again, not on purpose, but for example, on the power play, like, all right, who cares? We'll go get it. My zone entry, I'm the man. I'm coming in. Doesn't matter. So we'll lose 15, 20 seconds. You know, what's to it? You know, and again, he's so driven all the other parts, and it's, you know, it took Crosby years, you know, to figure it out too, and you know, but he worked at it. And then, is it something that Nate's working on? Maybe. Is it something that maybe he didn't work as much? Maybe. You know, the last 10 years or so. Who knows? You know what I mean? But he's certainly putting a little bit more effort.
Yep.
And a little bit more, like, his mindset seems to be a little bit better. And I think the numbers are showing, like you said, but it's not like he's, come on, he's not, you know, number one guy in the league right now.
No, not by any stretch.
But it certainly helps. I mean, it really does. And that's why we talked about the Jake Evans and, you know, right shot sentiment, taking a draw makes a big difference.
Is part of that the training wheels are off? You know, for years he had Landeskog to take faceoffs for him.
Yeah.
For years on the opposite side, he had Mikko to take faceoffs for him. Now both those guys are not here, so who's going to take them?
I know, and that's what I'm saying. You know, is it that? And I don't know. I'm sure he'd tell you he'd like to be better at it. Yeah. And maybe that's something that he's going to focus, or he's been focusing on. We just don't know. He hasn't told us.
Super Tom says the Avs are asset poor. Can they acquire a center and a defenseman from your trade board? Can they? Absolutely. Here's the thing. I'm not telling you that the Avs are asset rich, but I think the Avs have more assets than people are giving them credit for. Yeah. They're just assets that you don't want to move, right? Yeah. Are they a little bit thin on draft picks? Absolutely. But if the right trade comes up, you have a Cal Ritchie, you have a Mikhail Gulyayev, you have an Ilya Nabokov. Now, do the Avs want to move those guys? Of course not. Of course they don't want to move those guys. Yeah. But if it's for the piece that you believe wins you a Stanley Cup, do you do it anyway? Maybe.
And and I can tell you for a fact, like, internally within teams, you know, they have, you know, untouchables. Yeah. They do. I would think because of the situation they've put themselves and what they did last draft, that, for example, and I've never seen him play, so I don't know if he's good at Nabokov, is probably one of those untouchables.
I would assume
That's what I'm trying to say, you know? So, and then it's like, oh, God, if this comes down to that, please come and tape my mouth shut. You know what I mean? Like, you know, put a little, you know, and then
don't
trust
let me do it.
Don't let me do it. And there's conversations like that. I don't believe Cal Ritchie is in there. I don't believe Gulyayev would be in there. You know, but that doesn't mean that you're willing, like you said, to trade them.
Right.
It would have to be if you reach a certain level of that. Kind of like what I've been saying about Mikko, the timing and everything. Oh, but if we get Natchez, we're doing it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And they did it. So you set some standards there. It's nothing new. It's not like, oh, he got me on the phone. I fell asleep for a second. I got fleeced.
You have to draw a hard line for sure.
There's some hard lines, and then there's and trust me, it can be so disappointing. You know what I mean? Because you feel you got it, and then all of a sudden they draw their hard line too, and then you come back and you tell your staff it's a no-go, and it's like, and then you're starting to question yourself. You know what I mean? Like, did we really do the right call with this guy? Yeah. Should we really have drawn the line there? You know what I mean? And that's the beauty of this game. That's why it's fun. That's why it's such an electric time, and it's why it's so nerve-wracking, and it's so results-driven, and you know, because you're trying to see, is this going to make us get those results?
Yep.
Are we willing to?
It's only one way to find out.
That's it. Some guys have some kahunas and some guys don't. You know what I mean?
So, yeah, if the Avs find the right move, if they're willing to give up their heavy assets, they could get whatever they wanted done. It's just a question of what's worth it to them and what is the right move to make. The other side of this is I still really don't know what the market value of some of these guys is going to be into this trade deadline. It does not feel like there's a very set market. You have some teams like Philadelphia asking for the moon for Scott Lawton, and then you have some teams that seem like they're trying to give away guys.
And that's why I'm saying everybody's different about their hard line in the sand, right?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And or go back, and I know you know 10 seconds here. Tampa Bay back then, right? A couple years ago, it's like, oh, I don't care. I'm paying a first round pick for Barclay Goodrow, where nobody else probably would pay that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it's like, but I don't care. And then other teams will call, yeah, but Goodrow went for a first round pick. And the answer is, well, I don't care what Tampa did. I'm not doing that. You know? So there's both ways that, you know, the market sets itself up. Yes, it's always overpriced, you know what I mean? And just like on free agency, you're going to overpay for dollar amounts. You know, it's just, that's the situation with it. It's called a time, you know, where there is a clock and you're fighting the clock, and that's what makes it so stressful. You know what I mean? Because July 1st, it's the same thing. It's, oh, they're free and I can give them this much money. And trade deadline, it's on the 9th is it 3 o'clock Eastern time? So, you know, 1 o'clock here Mountain time, and and then all of a sudden it's 11, and then you're panicking because you're like, I really want that. And, you know, there's only 2 hours left. And then is he going to trade him to somebody else because he's going to get it somewhere else? So it's a cat and mouse game, and that's what makes it so entertaining or crazy. You know.
Did you ever watch the Power Rangers?
Yes. Some sort.
I don't know if you'll have the in-depth info here, but who's got the cooler main weapon? Billy the Blue Ranger or Zach the Black Ranger?
Oh, God. You know me. I have no idea.
No clue.
Okay, blue.
There you go. You heard it here first.
Yes. I saw the blue line below you right now on the screen. I'm like, blue.
It was faded. All right. We can keep going through a couple more questions, and then we'll take a couple from the live chat as well. Given how the season has gone, each of you pretend you're Chris McFarland. On a scale of 1 to 10, how willing would you be to go all in at the trade deadline?
Say it again.
Pretend you're Chris McFarland.
Yeah.
Scale 1 to 10. How willing are you to go all in at this deadline?
You want me to go first? I'll go first.
I can go first if you want.
No, that's fine. I mean, I won't change. Go ahead. I won't change my answer. So
7.5, maybe an 8.
okay.
I'm not going to say 10. I'm not willing to completely blow up every asset I have to try and win this year. That would be a 10. But I truly believe when you're having the conversation of you have Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar in their primes, you have to go for it.
Yeah.
You have to be smart about it. You can't just say I'm going all in and next year we're going to suck. But you have to at least give yourself a chance.
And that's why I give it a 9. But it's the same thought process. Maybe we viewed numbers differently.
Sure,
you know what
sure,
I mean? But
yeah.
it's the same thought process. Now, do I think that? But I'll tell you one thing. If they can tweak a couple things, I do believe they come out of the West, and I'm sticking to it. That's not being biased. This is not being hopeful. I do believe it because if you go back to Avalanche 1.0, 96 to 01, there was a lot of tweaking between those disappointments. And once you got the right one, once you got the right push and the right click and the right move, and then your roster was set, you're like, okay, we can go for it. And then, you know, of course, even 02, 03, 04, those were sick teams. You know what I mean? But it's that hard. It's that hard to win. But I do believe that in the window that McCarr's in, McKinnon's in, and the rest of the guys that are there signed, the Lekkonens and Taves and, you know, all those guys, I do believe that I think you owe it to yourself. And that's why they retooled the goaltending on the fly. You know what I mean? Because they didn't want to waste that year. And I think if you do that, that's why I say it's a 9. But I understand what you're saying about the 7. And absolutely, but we have the same thought process.
Yeah, I think we probably feel the same. We're just numbers
different
different
numbers,
because that's how we
same
scaled
thought
it.
process. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, chat. You have any good questions for us as we're starting to wind down the show here? I have a question for you though, E.
Yep.
I've asked you about pregame meals.
Yeah.
But best post-game meal.
Ooh, good question. I like food, you know.
And that's why I'm asking.
It's funny because I used to always love, going out to eat after a game. For me, if I was at home on a home game, it was always sushi. You know what I mean? I love sushi.
I'm a sushi guy too. I'm in for that.
Just kind of, that's my comfort food. You know what I mean? And my wife and some teammates. You know what I mean? And now if you're on the road, you get on the plane. Obviously, they're so spoiled and they're so well taken care of. But I think it's more like I go back to old reliable, and it's a steak and some rice and and whatever it is, and the seafood on the plane. And I mean, God, what a life that is. I'll tell you one thing: these guys get treated so good. But yeah, like I said, it's at home. It's more like a sushi place. You know what I mean? And it's late and it's so different nowadays. They have their own chefs, right? I'm talking about team wise, and you see the guys walking out of the building with. John, Av's great chef, you know what I mean, that he's cooked the meals, and the guys that's how spoiled they are. They don't even have to go out to the restaurant, but it's all cooked here by the chef, and guys leave with their bag, and they get home and they just, reheat the whatever it is that, the sweet potato with the kale and the steak, and it's unbelievable, which again, I think it's awesome in a way because you make an investment in players. Might as well just, treat them the right way, give them the right stuff to put in their bodies. But then on the other hand, I feel it just takes away a little bit sometimes from the camaraderie. You know what I mean? After a game to go out to eat with the wives and the guys, and you know what I mean? Because eating for me is a social thing. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
a little bit of give and take.
What's it like having an actual meal on a plane? Eh?
Oh man,
I wouldn't know. I've only flown economy in my life.
When I went to Greece this last October and I was flying back, I flew from Helsinki to New York, and I actually got 2 different. It was crazy. I was like, these are free. Dude, it was crazy.
I get a second bag of pretzels on plane. I'm like, this is
living totally. I was very impressed. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, and this is what we tell kids in development all the time. Like, do you want to go ride the bus and stop at the gas station and go get some peanuts? Or do you want to ride on the plane on the charter with a shrimp cocktail?
That's the
difference.
difference.
Know what I mean? And you walk in, a shrimp cocktail, lobster tails, and then all the food that there is, like nutritional value, like of bars and whatever, smoothies or whatever it is that you do, then you sit down, there's a menu there printed. Okay, you want to filet mignon, or would you like a wild Alaskan salmon? Or, you know what I mean? There's always a couple choices. A lot of times it's the catered company that the charters use, or it's throughout your own people too. So sometimes it will be their chef that sends in every team's a little different. I'm not too sure about the Avs now, how they work, but so they do know exactly what's being put into the players, bodies and
nutritional
but it's nice and you get treated very nice and you take it for granted. And when you do get out of the game and then you go back and you're just like, oh man, we were spoiled. You know what I mean? And then I think it makes you appreciate it a little more. You
didn't shout out your boy Henry.
That's right, my boy.
Don't tell the staff you're getting the hot dogs.
No, don't tell anybody. They wouldn't be happy.
All right, let's hit some of the live chat questions we got here. Maitland Bros says, Raquel or Besser? I guess Besser, but neither.
Yeah, and probably a good pick in the sense that they're both going to probably be moved. It sounds like. I mean, Vancouver is just, man, what a long year that's been.
Been tough for them.
I know they won last night in OT on a tough building in LA, but and Raquel, Pittsburgh's not going anywhere. I mean, if they can find some sort of deal for him, Carlson, guys like that, they're gone. I mean, I mean, neither. Who knows, right? I mean, I'm not jumping at the bit, but
okay,
good players, but
Matheson, I think probably Montreal's just weird, right? Matheson also has not had nearly as good a year as he did last year. He also, what he provides, another one of those guys that is it really what Colorado needs? Yeah. Probably not. Again, as with everything, it depends on price. If they're giving him away, of course I'm interested. But I think Montreal is going to want too much for him.
And they probably have a lot of takers for him.
Yeah,
right?
I'm sure they do.
And his production went down a little bit because, Lane Hudson has taken a lot of stuff away from him. I think he's been a real pro about it, though. It's never that's just from what I've been heard and hearing, and read and talked to people. Is he's been a good pro about it, and he's still a good player. This is a guy that had a tough start to his career. You know what I mean? It was not easy, and then found his footing, and then obviously, done a real good job the last few years there in Montreal. He's from there. Who knows what's going to happen with that part there? But I would think that there's a bunch of suitors after him for sure.
Cujo asks, what are you guys expecting from the first non-centralized draft? I don't know. It's going to be lame.
Yeah, I mean, man, part of the reasons it's so fun, it's to be all together and everybody around and the families. It's such a, it's just fun. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then you get to meet the team right there and the people and the staff. And it's just so fun to watch the excitement of the grandparents or, old coaches or, it's just kind of fun. You're going to say, yeah, you can do that. It's not the same when you go to someone's house and you wait and, or whatever. And then the staff's not there. And I think the second part is for the staff, to be together. You're going to say, oh, they'll be together in Denver. It's a little different. It's just not. I don't know. It's weird. I love the way the draft was. I understand why they're doing it. I understand the cost and that comes with it. I get that. I'm not oblivious to it, but it's still fun. It was always a fun thing to do as a player, as management, as family members of friends that are getting drafted or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of fun. I'm gonna miss that. Who knows how it's gonna be, and then maybe it will be for the better. I don't know. I don't think so, but time will tell. And 20 years from now, they'll be doing a pod or whatever it's gonna be called, and they'll be talking about this, and probably going back and say, "Oh my God, they used to do it like live. How dumb was that?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. We'll see. But I am sad that it's, as I know you are, that it's going to that format. I'm not very pleased with it.
Is what it is. Players are still fun. I still love the prospects, but the event's much less cool. Yeah. Aaron says, how much of a worst case scenario is it if Mikko goes to an East team and the Avs play that team for the Cup? If the Avs playing in the Stanley Cup, they did something right. So I'm not too worried about that, to be honest. You cross that bridge when you get there.
I think the limitations back then of guys being stubborn, I don't want to trade with this team or in my division, or you know what? Sometimes that's your dance partner and it's fine. And then you end up crossing paths, even if you trade him to the East. Or you never know, as we know, Mikko might end up getting traded to the West here this week. Who knows?
Happen.
I'm just saying, it could be a Dallas Star. It could be a Vegas Golden Knight. I mean, that's just life, right? But I think you move on, and it makes it hard on the player, too, sometimes, because it's like, I'm playing my former team, and then you either rise up to the challenge or you crumble to the challenge, and it just makes it for a little different. I remember Rob Blake in 01 facing the Kings, and oh my God, it was just killing him. And he struggled a little bit with it, and then he was so glad once they passed that round that, okay, it's behind me now. Even though I was in the first round, you're like, oh my God, if we win, we're taking these guys, right? And it's like it's always there. So it's a real question. It's a real thought process. But at the end of the day, is it does it really matter? It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't matter. We make it a bigger deal. You know what I mean? Like mentally than what it is.
For sure. I agree with that. Metal says, my question is for Rudo. How many monsters have you had today? Just one. I know I got to cut back on them. They're bad for me, but sometimes I need that caffeine or the energy boost.
It's all about moderation.
And then we have one more question from Andrew Commander says, does Cousins make any sense? And if so, what does it take to get him? I don't really understand the want for Cousins in Colorado. I don't think it makes a ton of sense. The one place it makes sense is you say, okay, Cousins is young and maybe you want him to grow into that role a little bit. But after 2 years ago, where he did have a great breakout 30-30 season, last year his production was just okay. This year he's actually getting outproduced by Casey Middlestat. Like he's producing less than the guy that everyone in the fan base is freaking out about his production. So it's weird to me that people want to chase him down. And don't bite on the size. Yes, he's a big guy, 6'3", 205 or whatever it is. He does not play big. That is not his game. That is not how he plays hockey. Don't trick yourself into thinking he's going to bring you that physical element.
And no offense to Buffalo, as we know, it's been such a mess there for years. and then you go there, and who knows? You look at Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart. Those guys come out and win Stanley Cups, even though people were scared maybe of like, oh, this is a bad environment they're in, or the deal with Cousin. Like, why would they want to move on from a guy like that? That's, high pick, big sign.
Yep.
There must be a reason.
All right, speed run wrap up. Let's go. We're going to wrap up the show here. We appreciate all y'all hanging out with us for this one. Tomorrow is the takeover, so we'll have a pre-recorded pregame, no watch along, and then we will have a postgame, but it'll come very, very late. It will be there, though, after we get back from the game. So we appreciate y'all. This has been the DNVR Avalanche Podcast presented by Bet365.
We all silly like the mayor.